Welcome to Get Your Head Around Headers in AL Web Service Calls. Hey, I'm Erik, and a question that I have received, a request perhaps even, that I have received multiple times here on the channel, are something about headers in when doing web service calls, and there are some confusing things going on. So that's what we're doing today. So let's get right into it. And I have found a piece of code we wrote in an earlier video, and here is a very simple web service call. It makes a call to something called PSTV2, and PSTV2 is this guy, the Post Test Server version 2, apparently made by some guy called Henry, and it's super convenient because you can just call it and you can see what you did. So that's what we're going to do first here. So let's just verify the code we have here to make sure it makes sense. So we have a client, which is an HTTP client, and we have a request message, and we have a response message, and we have some content. And the first thing we do is that we set up the request and say the method here is post. So we're going to post some data. Then we're going to set the URL, and we set it to the name of the post test server, and we have selected, that's a bit of toilet humor. So we have a toilet called YouTube, and that's where we're posting our dumps to. Toilet humor. Anyway, we have a couple of parameters in the query string. Then we have the content variable. So since we're posting, we have to have some content to post. So in this case, I have written a let's see. I have written a piece of JSON here. That's a JSON object with one key called test and a value of 1, 2, 3. And content.writeFrom sets the value of the content. And then we say that request.content is equal to the content we just created. And finally, we do a client, that's the HTTP client.send, and we send the request and we ask to get the response. So let's run this. And this is just on open page for customer list. So if we go back here and we refresh, we can see now we got the thing we just did, method post, 9 headers. Even though we have not specified a single header here, we managed to produce 9 headers, 2 parameters, 16 bytes in the body, and 0 files. So let's look at what that was actually turned into. So we can see that we have our 2 parameters. We can see we have our body, which is good, and there's no multi-part files encoding. And we got a bunch of headers here. And some of them are just because added in by the test server thing, added in by Microsoft perhaps. I think most of these are added in by the toilet. But we can see that we have 2 headers here saying, hey, this is the content. And right now we have a text/plain content type. So if we were to post JSON, then the web service that we're talking to might turn around and say, no, that's a 40 something, that this is not correct data. I'm expecting JSON and you're sending me plain text. So how do we tell the server that we are actually going to send JSON? Well, we're going to add a header. So let's do that. And for that, we need a variable of the type of HTTP headers. And it's kind of weird because the way you do this, so we can specify, but let's go down here and then we do request dot, and then there's a function called get headers. So we can use that, and then we apply our headers variables. Now we have the headers of the request. So let's put a breakpoint on that, just so we can inspect what's in that variable. So I will deploy and debug, and now we have a breakpoint here. So we're just gonna execute that, and then we can take a look at headers. Or can we? That's interesting. Let's see if we can see anything useful on headers. Headers is either not telling us anything useful, or it's actually empty. So nothing there. Okay, so what we can go ahead now is that we can say headers dot, and now we have two options. We have multiple options, as you can see, but we can add a header. And the header we were interested in was content type. And then I think we're gonna tell that this is application slash JSON. Perhaps we wanna use what they also do here, and then say that, by the way, the char set is, I guess JSON is always UTF-8. I think we'll just go with this. See, that's perfect. So we don't have, there's no, you could think that now I'm gonna do just like we have a get request URI and set request URI. So we only got get headers. So we cannot do, set headers and then put this variable back where we added our thing. The way it works is that this headers variable that we got is linked to this request. So this is kind of a slightly on AL-ish. This is straight out of .NET. So now we have the object. This is a pointer to the object, the headers object inside the request structure. So just by setting this variable here, it's already in here. It's put into request. So we can go ahead and let's see what happens. I think we got something on the breakpoint. I have to open it twice. If anybody from Microsoft knows that. But anyway, we got a breakpoint. Excellent. We'll just do F10 here, and then we'll add this guy. And now we got an error. You see that the debugger kind of just got stuck in the middle here. So a lovely .NET error. System and value operation exception, misused header name. Make sure request headers are used with HTTP request message, response headers with HTTP response message, and content headers with HTTP content objects. Okay, so let's go to Business Central HTTP request message. Let's look at the documentation here for a second. And we have the get headers, and let's see, that's a type HTTP headers. So we got an add function, and we got nothing here, nothing really useful. So why couldn't we add content type? Clearly there's nothing in the documentation saying that that's the case. So some of you might have seen that there were actually another add function. So we could try, let's copy this one and do this. We could try and do headers dot try add without validation. Maybe that's what we need to do. So let's run this again, see what we get. Now there's no breakpoint, so this should make it or break it. Let's see what happens. It worked, so let's go here, and we need to go back and refresh this one. So this is the last one. This is the last one, but this is text plain. This is text plain. This is text. So clearly that didn't work. Okay, let me tell you what is going on. So if we go back and actually read that very lovely formatted .NET error we got out of this thing. Typically Microsoft try to translate whenever they get a .NET exception, they translate that into a AL exception and give you, or AL error, and give you that. But in case of, there it is.
This might answer your question. I don't know the number of cases of North Vancouver. According to Health Canada, as of May 2022, there have been 363,000.
Ha! Go away, Alexa. Did you hear that? Did I say that? Okay. Anyway. So system invalid operation exception. But let's misused header name. So clearly we're not allowed to use content type here. Make sure that request headers are used with request message, response headers are used with response message, and content headers are used with HTTP content objects. So this is a content header, so clearly we need to use it somewhere else. So let's try and do that. So let's grab these two lines of code and remove them. Just put them down here for a second. Oh, that didn't really make any sense. But let's look at our content and see we can also do a get headers here. So we can do content get headers. And now we're adding the content type to the content headers instead. And let's see what happens here. Cannot add value because header content type does not support multiple values. Okay. So so this one already have a content type header, which we saw, right? So if we want to put our own, we got some options. We can say remove content type. We can clear everything. I guess those are the main options. So let's try and run this again. Come on, BC. Okay, so this worked. Let's go and take a look at this guy. We got a new one. Let's take a view at the post. And now we got application JSON on our content type. All the other ones are still kind of the same, and all this is all good. But now we managed to switch this one to the right one. Because we now put the header in the right place. So what is going on? Well, let me actually show you just a snippet from here. So this is the reference source for .NET, some arbitrary version, I think. But let's take a look at what we have right here. So we have a list of headers. We have a list of headers, say allow, content encoding, content length, content length, content location, content MD5, range, type, expired, blah, blah, blah. All these headers are marked as is content header, meaning that those can only be used on the HTTP content. And because what we have inside Business Central is just a shim, a wrapper to what's happening in .NET. You see, we by being a little, not terrible, it was a good try. You add a header and you got a nasty .NET error, because that's how close the .NET stuff sometimes is to the surface in AL. And these functions are just the .NET versions. They are behaving just as good and just as bad as their .NET counterpart, because that's what they are. So it could be nice to have a list like this shown in the Business Central documentation, because this is I'm not the first one who had the error with content type. I'm not going to be the last one. Hopefully, maybe you see this video. If you're a subscriber, you would. If you're not a subscriber, hit that red button and subscribe to your channel. I promise you, your life will be better. I hope. Anyway, back to HTTP calls here, and what about other headers? So we could still have the problem of saying, hey, we want to add something up here. So if we can go up here, and then let's say I can do headers and add, and I could add a authorization, and then I add my bearer token here. I could add basically any header I want up here, and so now we added a few headers to the variable. So as soon as we do get headers, and I'm totally gonna reuse the variable here, then whatever happened in here, now headers is pointing to the other one, but this is still working because it's just a pointer. So if we run this now, we should hopefully get I don't know how many headers do we have. Before was 9, so I guess we added 2, that would be 11. And now you may ask, but hang on, Erik, now you got 3 calls here. And yes, I did. And to be honest, so we got the bearer thing, we got Erik's header here, and we got our content value. So it works fine. So why did we get 3 calls? I don't know. It's something weird that's happening sometimes in Business Central when the debugger is involved, that the on-open page gets triggered multiple times. If somebody from Microsoft says, I know why, put it in the comments. Then everybody would want to read that. But it's kind of strange that on-open page gets called multiple times. But it's something with the debugger, which actually... bonus content here, which is interesting. Do not put data processing in on-open page if you can avoid it. The problem with on-open page is that it happens before the UI is initialized. So if you're spending 10-20 seconds on doing something fancy in order to view it, that won't show up. So it's way better to encapsulate that in some other object and then open the page with that data from the other object. So you have a chance to open a dialog or stuff like that. On open page is complicated. Anyway, back to our regular programming. So we can add headers to the request. We can add headers to the content. We can add, I think, I'm just going to do this. So we have headers on the response also, but that's kind of for the headers we're getting back, because we can get headers back. So we got headers here, and then we can actually why is this so weird now here? But anyway, we can grab the values out of the headers we're getting back, because sometimes when you have a reply, there are additional information stored in the headers, but you can access them directly here. So, or you can say, if you want to do that way, you can grab the headers out of responsive headers, and then it's the normal thing. Anyway, those who have requested something about this, let me know in the comments below if this is enough. Now we spent 20 minutes on it, so I hope. Anyway, otherwise, let me know if there's still questions. Let me know in the comments below, and if you're keen for more, then this video is for you, selected by the almighty algorithm. So check it out. I'll see you there. Take care. Bye.